What's up, losers? Today I'm going back to the well once again, reading more posts from fatlogic, and having a good little chuckle at them. I can't seem to get enough of the fat acceptance movement's hijinks. So I figure, I might as well squeeze some content out of them. Right, anyway, let's get into the posts.
It's statistically more dangerous to be underweight than overweight, signaling that obesity is far more about rampant anti-fat bias than it is about health.
There's a few problems with this, and I think that they're pretty obvious for anyone with any critical thinking skills. The first is that the categories of overweight and underweight are too broad to allow for any meaningful conclusions to be reached by comparing them. Yes, someone who is marginally overweight might not be in any imminent danger due to their size. But people who are obese, and especially those who are morbidly obese, almost certainly are, and a great many of the most visible faces of the fat acceptance movement fall into these categories. Similarly, someone who is severely underweight might be putting their long and short-term health at risk, but this is probably not as much of an issue for someone who only just falls into the underweight bracket, especially considering factors like height that can influence one's BMI. With all of this in mind, you can't make sweeping comparisons between overweight and underweight people. Each person is a unique case, and the extent of their weight problem is more significant than whether they nominally qualify as overweight or underweight. The next problem with this post is that it seems to misunderstand why people call obesity an epidemic. People don't just call obesity an epidemic because obesity is bad, but also because it is a condition that is rapidly becoming more widespread, to the point that it affects massive swathes of the population, and because this state of affairs is putting an alarming strain on the existing health system. As there are nowhere near as many underweight people as there are overweight people, and this population is not growing at the same rate, or putting the same strain on the system, it wouldn't make sense to label underweightness an epidemic, regardless of the problems it can cause. And finally, as if this needs to be said, the goal of dieting should not be to go from overweight to underweight. People should naturally aim to maintain a healthy weight, and those who aim to propagate extreme thinness as a beauty ideal should rightly be criticized. But most diet and fitness plans do not promote being underweight. They just try to help people achieve a healthier weight and lifestyle. So, to dismiss all dieting because of a few people's irresponsibility is unfair and immature.
The people who say, "I haven't gotten sick," when you tell them why they should be wearing a mask, are the pandemic version of the people who say, "I've lost weight before, so anyone can," when you tell them about the 50 years worth of scientific evidence that proves that losing weight, long-term, is impossible for 95% of people. #pandemic, #COVID, #fatphobia, #worthy thoughts.
Ha ha, wouldn't the equivalent of those anti-maskers be the fat activists who say, "My blood work is fine at the moment, so my obesity is not a health issue"? As for the supposed impossibility of losing weight, I'm highly skeptical of the 95% figure being given here, but even if I were to accept it, it wouldn't prove that losing weight was impossible for anyone. It would just prove that those people failed to lose weight. Losing weight is absolutely possible. In fact, it's a relatively simple proposition. Calories in, calories out, run a deficit. If you fail to do this, it's ultimately on you. It's fine to have difficulty losing weight, but deciding that something is impossible just because it's difficult is a losing mentality.
Firstly, you are still stuck in the 1960s, with your advice being based on the calories of foods. Do you understand what a calorie is? It is a measurement of heat, of physically burning a food or meal in a bomb calorimeter, and measuring just the heat given off. That raises the temperature of 1 liter of water by 1 degree Celsius at sea level, as sympathetic representation of how foods get digested. absorbed, and metabolized in the body. Calories are a nonsense idea, and unscientific, and irrelevant of how healthy a food is. Food contains nutrients, not calories.
What a weird rant. It seems like this person's argumentative strategy is just to make perfectly normal things sound ridiculous. Like, a calorie is just a unit of energy. The fact that a calorie is the amount of energy required to heat a kilogram of water by 1 degree Celsius is not some crazy conspiracy. It's just a basis for standardization. Like, units have to come from somewhere. If anything, it seems like a pretty logical and convenient unit to me. As for the calories versus nutrients point, like, yeah, nutrients in food are important, obviously, but it's also important not to consume too many calories, because the excess energy will be stored as fat, and bring on the problems associated with obesity. This poster is trying to create some false dichotomy between nutrients and calories, when in reality, some really nutrient-rich foods have very few calories, and some calorie-dense foods have hardly any nutrients. People don't become obese because they're consuming too many nutrients. They become obese because they're consuming too many calories. And this kind of muddled rhetoric isn't going to help anyone achieve a healthier diet.
Fit phobia is not now, and has never been, a thing. Pass it on. Hashtag anything to feel oppressed, right? LMAO. Hashtag imagine not being worshipped for your thinness for 2 seconds and making up new terms for your supposed oppression. I can't. Hashtag fit phobia. Hashtag fit phobia isn't real. Hashtag fat phobia. Hashtag anti-diet. Hashtag anti-diet culture. Hashtag haze. Hashtag health at every size. Hashtag bopo.
Good lord, there's something so infuriatingly passive-aggressive about putting most of your post in the hashtags. It's like, you can't even respond to it, because it's in the hashtags, not the post, and it also implies that there are a bunch of people who agree. Which, sadly, there just might be, haha. But yeah, in all honesty, I basically agree that fit phobia isn't a real thing. At least, not to any great degree. Although the fat acceptance movement certainly seems to be threatened by fit bodies, haha. But it's a bit rich hearing fat activists claim that other people are trying to be oppressed, when, let's be real, that's basically all they do. 24 hours a day. Chairs, clothing sizes, bathtubs. It's all some grand plot to bring fat people down, according to them. So you'll excuse me for not having much time for their crusade against the concept of fit phobia.
I'm sorry, but why is 250 pounds always assumed to be fat content? You do realize muscle is denser and takes up less space. 250 pounds can't be generalized with the image on the left. There is no standard image for any number.
The classic BMI doesn't account for muscle refrain. Isn't it hilarious how the people making this argument are never actually bodybuilders? And you know why that is. Because if you're actually in that great shape, the eye test will suffice. Nobody is out here accusing lean, muscular people of being obese. It's always people who are visibly obese trying to throw out BMI as a measurement, because they don't like being called overweight. BMI is useful as a guideline for the vast majority of people, and pointing to the most extreme of outliers to invalidate its utility is just obtuse.
I think what's most important to remember about fat phobia is that its most damning consequences, the brutal abuse and death of fat people, serve to reinforce its structuring logics that fat people are always and already dying. Evidence of societal and personal decline. The work of undoing fat phobia, thus, is both pointing out the hypocrisy of a medical industry that has the audacity to call fat people an epidemic, while actively hastening their deaths, and about understanding the broader discourses of blame and unworthiness that allow institutions to commit murder, while swearing that victims did it to themselves. Hashtag TXT, hashtag mine, hashtag ableism, hashtag fat phobia, hashtag medical industrial complex.
What a delicious word salad. It's wild how someone can, unironically, write something like this, and not see how they're just taking their conclusions for granted. Like, instead of recognizing the health consequences of obesity as evidence that obesity is unhealthy, they just assume that this is caused by the psychological trauma of fat phobia or something, because the alternative is something that they're unwilling to even consider. This is what makes ideological spaces like fat acceptance so toxic and damaging. They only serve to close minds, shut down critical thinking, inhibit self-reflection, and stunt personal growth. How sad.
Every morning I used to get on the scale. Whether it was up or down, it didn't matter. The number always told me I wasn't good enough. Well, in the program, I took the advice to change my scale, putting affirmations where the numbers once were. Now, the scale tells me I'm perfect, sexy, or looking good, and seeing that actually helps me eat better.
Bahaha, okay, this one is just too funny. Imagine doing something like this and not feeling like a total loser. I feel like perfect, sexy, and looking good are things that Lightning McQueen would say to himself as he gets ready for a race. At what point does self-affirmation cross the line into flat-out narcissism? Also, if you're not going to look at the number on the scale, why would you weigh yourself in the first place? Surely you would just put the scale away. I don't get it. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope you had fun. Got a few laughs. I know I did. If you have any thoughts on the medical industrial complex or fit phobia, be sure to let me know in the comments. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, or I'll leave a note on your scale that says, "You're unattractive, and you smell." Ha ha. Catch you later.